Yeah, thank you very much, Rebecca. Very warm welcome to every one of you this afternoon. It's good that you are here. And before we get started, I'd like to comment a little bit on the title, because some of you may be wondering, what is this title all about? Corporate culture and Corona. You may even wonder, is there a connection between these terms or not? And honestly, I don't know. Yeah, maybe there is, maybe not. We will see in a minute. The idea is that we look a little bit at your worlds in corporates, in larger companies, and that we try to figure out what is going on in terms of culture there anyway. And then we have a look at what's currently going on due to all the Corona effects and what's going to change and what maybe remains the same. So what I will try and do in the next few minutes is just try to get to those three questions. So the first one would be, what is it that we talk about? So what is corporate culture all about? And more precisely, what do people have on their minds when they say, hey, let's become more entrepreneurial, or let's be more innovative, or let's be faster or more flexible or agile or whatever, okay? And then the second question that we're currently dealing with a lot is what are companies already doing? So what do we already see in terms of improvements in corporate culture? Here I obviously benefit a lot from all the executive education seminars that we had in the last years and decades here at WHU, so where I met many of you people and where I could discuss many of these topics with you people. So there is already a lot going on. And then the third question is there now anything new, anything changing due to this Corona crisis? So does that affect corporate cultures either to the better or to the worst, whatever? I would encourage everyone, whenever you have questions, feel free to say so. Rebecca and Verena are kind enough to collect all your questions, and we will get back to them, so they're very, very welcome. I can also look at them in between, so just in case there is something that is on your minds just right now, maybe you're getting very emotional, there's something you want to say right away, please feel free to do so. Then if I can, I would jump in and get back to your questions immediately. Yeah, maybe starting with this first question, there's obviously already a long discussion on what is corporate culture all about. We will now not look at corporate culture in general, but more of the more recent activities. How could we make companies more innovative? How could we make companies more entrepreneurial? And what I guess many of you know already is that there's so confusingly many terms for this. So depending on where you work, depending on what you do, I guess you've heard a few of those words and terms already. Maybe you've heard all of them already, but typical words that you come across are words like empowerment, which comes more from the HR side. So how can we induce people, our employees, to take decisions, to be proactive? You certainly came across the term intrapreneurship, which is an interesting term. It combines the idea of being an entrepreneur, but still working for a company. So the idea is, how can we induce employees to behave as if they were entrepreneurs? The corporate wrenching is another term you may have seen before. There's all kinds of ideas on how could companies do more new venture activity, and it's also all about risk taking. And what I tried to put here on the chart, as you will see, these charts are brief, but there's a few things that we've been discussing already for quite a long time. Yeah, we're trying to get away from deep hierarchies. We're trying to get away from big ego cultures. We're trying to get away from perfectionism. We're trying to get back from this analyzing mode to actually doing something. We try to encourage everyone to try something out, to make mistakes, and to get away from blame. Yeah, the same is true, obviously, then for academic research. So again, I won't bother you this afternoon with details of academic research. This chart that you see here is just an example. Obviously, there is a lot of research going on. Obviously, there are some important findings. What you see here in a nutshell is that academic research has come up with a term, a construct called entrepreneurial orientation. You can measure that on the level of a company. You can measure that on the level of an individual person. But what you see here is basically that more entrepreneurial orientation is better. Okay, it increases competitiveness. It makes companies more innovative. Yeah, and you see the same type of words here, like being proactive, willingness to take risk. Let individual employees decide autonomously, be a bit aggressive when it comes to competitors, and so forth. Yeah? So we know already from what practitioners do and from what academics found out that this does matter. So the corporate culture is relevant and it does matter. Yeah, and then there has been some research trying to figure out, okay, what exactly would make the culture of your company better? What exactly would make you more innovative? What exactly would help you to become a more innovative or entrepreneurial company? And again, I've just listed the few things that maybe you all heard about. Those are the ones that we all know already. Yeah, so whenever you want to make your corporate culture more innovative or more entrepreneurial, then make sure that your people have a little bit of leeway. Leeway means time and resources to do something they're interested in. Make sure that initiatives are being picked up positively. Yeah, don't blame people for suggesting ideas and trying things out, but take it as a positive. Let's be open for exchanges with the outside world, be that conferences, researchers, competitors, whatever. Believe it or not, but we all try to keep our bureaucracy low and limited, and we try to establish a general curiosity. Yeah, we try to make people generally interested in new technologies and in new innovative solutions. And if you check that for yourself, for your own company, the company you currently work on, you may try to figure out how far are we already? How much of this is already true in your organization? I don't know. Yeah, I've seen all kinds of organizations and companies, and sometimes you find a lot of that. Sometimes, honestly, you find very little. Sometimes it's mainly lip service or whatever. Yeah, but everyone would basically agree that those are the things that we need. Yeah, what also matters, obviously, is behavior. So that's why I think this webinar series is of interest. Maybe you've already been listening into prior webinars at WHU here, like my colleague Michael Frankel on the macroeconomic effects of Corona, or my colleague here on Martin Fastnacht on marketing and the like. Yeah, so what it all ends up with is that the behavior of people like you matters. Yeah, so I guess many of you are managers in whatever form. And so whether we achieve these innovative and entrepreneurial cultures really depends on behavior. So you have another checklist here. You could go over the checklist and ask yourself or ask your department, is this what we do already? Yeah? Maybe the most provocative thing is the first one. That's something I discuss frequently with companies. That's this obsession with controlling and business cases. Yeah? So whenever someone wants to do something, whenever there's an idea, your natural enemy, the controlling department, is first always asking for a business case. And then you would say things like, oh my God, this is so innovative, this is so new, we really don't have any data. Yeah, and normally they would still hammer you and say, hey, look, if you don't come up with data, if you don't have a business case, it's not going to happen. Yeah? So the one honest question is, if there's really no data, if it's really very innovative, if people really don't know what's going to happen, then don't waste time on preparing business cases. Yeah, because what people will do, and that's what you all know, they will just pull some figures from the air, they will just make up something, and at the end of the day, they will still not know. You know? The next point is also clear. Behavior means we need sooner or later to get out of this analyzing mode into something like a doing mode. So you can ask yourself, are we proactive? Are we trying to do something? Are we getting over this just reasoning and preparing PowerPoint charts? Yeah? It's also okay to not be perfect. It's also okay to not reach an optimum. Yeah, so this third rule would say whenever you are close to a good solution, that's good enough. Yeah, prefer heuristics over an optimization procedure, and in whatever you do, focus on what customers really want. That's a word of warning to my engineering friends. As you know, I envy engineers. You're the highest and the best people could ever get, but I would never let you develop something new or to design a product because you just do too much of it. Yeah, you fall in love with your product, you over-engineer it, and at the end of the day, it's much more than what your customers really want. Yeah, so we're actually talking about leadership. That's the overall topic at WHU. That's what we do in all our programs, MBA programs, EMBA programs, or in executive education. It's all about leadership. Yeah? So my question today is only, what's your leadership role in corporate culture, and has the coronavirus added anything to it, or changed anything in this? Yeah, or created any new challenges? And that's what we will do in a minute. Yeah, the second part of this little talk this afternoon refers to the question, what have large organizations already done? And the answer is, yes, they have done quite a bit. But it depends on what company you work for. In some companies, they've already been doing a lot, in others maybe less so. But again, there is a little checklist for you to look at, and you can just tick these individual bullet points and ask yourself, is that what you have seen in your organization? I mean, some of this is obviously funny, so this probably doesn't have a big effect, and it's funny, like that people started to take their ties off and wear cowboy boots and stuff, yeah? That maybe doesn't have a direct effect on corporate culture, but at least it states people want to change something. Maybe your executive board has been to Silicon Valley to visit a few startups. I guess they've done that. If you're a German company, maybe you're already now in this more informal mode of saying Uschi and Jean-Jacques and do to each other. I don't know. Yeah. And when you look at the more serious measures and activities, then you see maybe your company already has an innovation lab, maybe an incubator or an accelerator or whatever type. Maybe you have already some cooperation with startups. Maybe you even bought startups. Or maybe you were sent to corporate transformation programs like the ones we're organizing at WHU. Yeah? That's where I meet most of you people in these strategy and change management programs, where the question is, hey, Peter, how exactly can we do this? Yeah, what can we do to make our corporate culture a bit faster, a bit more innovative, a bit more entrepreneurial? Yeah, then I guess that's also something you've seen before. Many companies are trying to understand what disruption means for them. Yeah, and if you ever want to read the real book, the bestseller, that would be Clayton Christensen's book here. He's the man who invented the term. He's been voted the most influential management thinker worldwide many years in a row. And the chart probably looks complicated, and we don't look at the chart, but this is what disruption is all about. Look at your industry, look at what you're currently doing, and then someone comes along and makes products or services that are cheaper, that are easier to use, that are smaller, more convenient. In the beginning, you don't take those seriously. You laugh about them, you're saying, haha, they're too cheap, haha, they're too simple, haha, that's not good enough for customers. But after a while, they get better and better, and then they do eat into your markets. Yeah? Just what you currently see with battery electric vehicles and automotive, but you see that in a broad range of industries. So corporate culture matters because we simply need to become faster. Okay? If you can't do this on your own, the story of the Innovator's Dilemma book is large companies are bad at doing this, but at least you should see it coming, shouldn't you? And if you see it coming, then the question is you should at least do something about it. You know, maybe if you as a large company cannot do it, maybe you can buy a startup or cooperate with a startup or whatever. But that's what disruption is all about. Yeah, then some companies have been working on trimming bureaucracy. They've trying to reduce politics and everything. I don't know how much you suffer from all these things, but I, in the last decades, I've been in this business for very long. I've seen a lot of bureaucracy. Yeah, I currently sit here in a big public university. The good thing is I'm sitting here absolutely alone. No one is here, but that's a nice example of bureaucracy. Okay, and bureaucracy can be really bad. Yeah, bureaucracy can stifle everything, can slow down everything. So here you can see there is quite some ideas. How can we reduce bureaucracy? Yeah? When was the last time that you had a personal breakfast or lunch with your CEO? Yeah? When was the last time when you could simply walk into a meeting and walk out of a meeting without anyone being pissed off? Yeah? When was the last time that you met really all people? Yeah? When was the last time that the flow of information in your company was really open? Yeah, when was the last time when there was no politics, no bullshitting, no hidden agenda, and no rumors and stuff? Okay, so we know this already, and I know that some of your companies are improving on this a lot already. And then the biggest question is of all, how far have we already come in encouraging people to take risks? Yeah, is risk in your organization seen as something positive or not? This is a nice chart because it says, how do managers generally react to risk? Yeah, you may know all these forms of behavior. There's this few people who just look at risk and take a decision. That's probably the entrepreneurs amongst you. That's this gray box saying, okay, understand the problem, do something. But as you all know, in most large organizations, that's what you can never do. Yeah, I guess many of you can never just choose and do something. You probably try to gain time. You probably make a better informed choice. I guess many of you spend hours and days in getting better information or a market forecast or whatever. And the very smart ones among you will try to get a control over something that honestly, ultimately, you can never gain control of. So that will be another question. Is there an effect that Corona has on risk-taking, or will this more or less remain the same? Will people find ways to make their organization more open for risk-taking, and will there be more of what we call fault tolerance or not? Yeah, and then obviously companies have been starting to change that part of culture and that part of corporate culture that everyone can see. Yeah, what you all know already is, unfortunately, we can only see a little bit. Yeah, you may know this idea of culture is like an iceberg. Most of it is under the water. You know? Some people would estimate it as much as 90% is below water. So it means that's not directly visible. That's not something that people are aware of. If you talk to your colleagues, then they wouldn't be able to say that this is part of the culture. It's never explicitly questioned. It's extremely hard to change. So if they're doing something, then they probably work on that part of the iceberg that is visible. Yeah, that part may be only 10%, but that is something that people are aware of. That is something that's made explicit. That is something that you can change. Yeah? So you could, like Michael Otto did in Otto Group, you can send an email to everyone and say, hey, from now on, please say do to me. Yeah, or you can say, from now on, take your tie off. Or you can say, okay, from now on, we get rid of business cases or whatever. Yeah? And I guess in your organization, that has already started, I guess, in many companies. Yeah, now we come to the real topic of this little webinar this afternoon. The main question. The main question is, what is the coronavirus currently doing to corporate culture? Yeah, and what effects do we see? And there I'm also interested in your experiences so far. So again, I would invite you to write that down in the chat, in the Q&A, so we can discuss this. And I would now begin to just have a few suggestions. So there's obviously one hypothesis, one scenario that you saw repeated times, that Corona will have no effect at all. Yeah, so the answer to this question would be, there is no such effect. Corona will disappear, we will have a vaccine sooner or later, and then people will hopefully forget about all the trouble they had and everything will go back to normal. Yeah? And here one in the audience, Jose, is already indicating that, yeah, a digital culture is obviously something. So I personally, I'm more inclined to think that the second scenario will hold true. So the second hypothesis is Corona will have an effect. Corona will change some things. And then what companies will do, they will try to keep those processes, those new structure, those new forms of behavior that came out of the Corona crisis, but that turned out to be good. Yeah. So maybe we will keep those things that turned out to be good, and something will change and something will have a lasting effect. And we will see what it is. As Jose suggests, maybe it's the digital culture, but maybe it's other things as well. I think it's pretty clear for the digitalization part. Yeah, this is a joke that I read somewhere. This is a joke I guess you've seen before. It's certainly something that we see right now at universities. Yeah, it took us decades to talk about digitalization, and honestly, not much mattered. I think WHU is far ahead of the pack, but at the rest of the organization, nothing happened until Corona set in. So this is the joke that obviously digitalization is speeding up significantly. Yeah. Yeah, there's another question also, what do we do with companies that have no corporate culture at all? My feeling would be any company has some form of culture. It could be good or bad, whatever, but there will always be some culture. And then we would say, okay, what would make it a better culture? But I guess digitalization is part of the change. Digitalization will stay, so the things that will work now, those are the things that companies will keep. Yeah, the next thing is, and that's maybe something we all dealt with, that's something we all had our own experiences with, that's these beautiful online meetings. Yeah, honestly, what we're currently doing here, whether that's Teams or whether that's Zooms or whether that's something else, I guess you all had your nice private little experience with meetings. So I guess that part will stay. We will have more online meetings, I guess, because people simply realize that it is easier to do that. People realize that they're saving travel costs and so forth. So I guess we will see this in the future. But the really relevant question is, will we also have better meetings? I don't know what your experiences are, but it's very interesting. Does this digitalization and this online, does this make things better or worse? And is decision-making more efficient or not? I'm personally always wondering, what do people do during an online meeting? Yeah, because frequently they switch off their microphone, they switch off their camera, and then you don't even see them. Yeah, think of the old-time meetings, at least you would see your colleagues sitting there. And we all know that they were doing something else. Yeah, they were playing around with their iPhones or so, but it's still a bit harder to do that when you sit together. Okay. The next thing I'm wondering, because I spend most of my day sitting in these online meetings, do we really have a more open, more honest discussion or not? Yeah, and I'm again not so sure. But it's sure true that some of these online meetings are funny because something unexpected happens. Yeah, you can look at people's background, where do people sit? If you're lucky, maybe the dog jumps in or the kids come in and say something funny. Yeah, so that is maybe what's good about online meetings. But the thing you cannot do easily, you cannot easily talk to other colleagues. I don't know how you do this, but we do this. We have our mobile phones next to us, and when I want to talk to you, I would send that person a private WhatsApp. Yeah, and some people use the chat function here, but then they make mistakes. Yeah, they send a message to someone individually, and with a little mistake, you send it out to everyone else, so that everyone can see it. So there is a lot. I think we all still learning about these online meetings, and the question is, how can we make it better? Yeah, home office is the other thing. Many of you, I guess, have now been spending time in the home office. Maybe you read these recent press reports, like with Twitter, that they say, okay, this is working so well, so we will see more of this. We will eventually do this forever. Yeah, there's clear positives here that companies, yes, they do save money on office space. We do save commuting time. I'm not absolutely sure whether employees and managers like you become more or less productive. Yeah, when you talk to individual people, some say, it's great. Yeah, my brother is an investment banker. He says he's having the best time he's had for a long time. Yeah, he has more time, he's more efficient, he's more productive. But I guess you also easily meet many other people, and they would say, no, all this office at home and all this digital work is not making me more productive. Yeah, maybe at the end of the day, I'm not getting much done. Yeah, flexibility is also something positive, but data security issues increase. So there's currently a lot of things that companies are trying to figure out. But again, the question will be, is this really making the organization better? Better in the sense of more productive, faster, risk-taking, and whatever. Yeah. Tulu is asking about the guidelines for innovative projects. Yeah, how can an organization set guidelines? The budget is limited, and you're right, Corona probably makes the budget even more limited, right? So for you right now, it may be even harder to get funded for good ideas. But then hopefully what an organization would have is a long-term perspective. Yeah, the worst that can happen is that they now try to kill all those innovation projects, because that's an easy way to save money. Yeah, I think what we also do see and what we will see and what probably remains in the future, that's this idea that business trips will become less common. Yeah, that's something that we currently all see. Yeah, reducing travel cost is something that many companies will do. I think what you all probably learned is that you can save a lot of time. I guess it depends on your age. If you're very young, then you like business trips. Yeah, I've seen all these generations of students, and all students say when they're young, it's cool to be in an airport lounge. It's cool to have a senator status card. It's cool to be in Malaysia today and in North Korea tomorrow. But I guess the older you get and the more you have, let's say, kids and stuff, the more painful business trips become. So I guess some of you people are right now happy that there's fewer business trips. Some of you may be outright thankful that they're not traveling to China twice a month or so forth. So it depends on really where you are, but it's pretty clear that we will see less of this. Yeah, it's also that trust has been reduced. This idea that we openly approach other people, that we meet other people, that's largely being reduced. Yeah, people always look at others and say, oh, you may eventually carry this deadly virus and maybe we should stay away from each other. And I think many of these online meetings have proven to be as efficient as physical meetings. So I think maybe that is something that will remain. Yeah, business model innovation is what Donata's saying. That's also something we could get back in a minute to in the general discussion. Will people be more open for change? I don't know. My core question would be, whenever you look at your own organization, will this Corona crisis and the new way of work that we're having, will this actually make your company quicker? Will this make your company faster? Or will this actually make your company slower and more bureaucratic and sort of more risk averse? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, there is probably no general answer, but what you see here is there is all kinds of effects that we know already from academic research that actually slow their companies down, and there's all kinds of reasons why companies get faster. Yeah, so the more pressure there is from the market, like changing customer needs or new technologies or dangerous competitors or whatever, the more there will be a reaction. And maybe this whole crisis, like earlier crisis before, will speed up change. You know, that's at least thinkable, and that's at least hopeful. The other open question that you see here is that will Corona really help to make companies less bureaucratic? Okay, that is something that I don't know. I think bureaucracy is maybe the most important phenomenon standing in the way. Maybe bureaucracy is really what makes it hard in large companies. And maybe that's the core advantage that smaller companies and startups have, that they do not have so much of a bureaucracy. Yeah, and when you spend longer times in organization, I think you know all these symptoms of bureaucracy. Yeah. When we do these seminars in executive education at WHU, those are the typical questions I ask participants. Like how many hours per day do you spend reading your email? Yeah. How many hours per day do you spend in meetings? Yeah. How many hours per day do you spend on either reading reports or preparing reports? Yeah. Have you all seen how companies collapse under, let's say, death by PowerPoint or death by Excel, yeah? Or, I mean, I asked my brother these questions and he said, Peter, I don't understand you because my life is email meetings and reporting. I do nothing else, yeah? So that's his whole life. But at the end of the day, there should be some time left over and we should reduce bureaucracy a little bit. And the interesting question is, would Corona help? Yeah, because we travel less, because we waste less time in meetings, yeah, because maybe we speed up decision making, yeah, maybe it's actually something good. Also because it puts more pressure on companies, yeah. Budgets are currently cut down, yeah, obviously we see a big recession. Michael Frankel outlined this to us, so it would actually also maybe an opportunity to speed things up a little bit. Yeah, and then performance management, that's another point. We will see what happens to performance management. Maybe these companies set tighter targets, maybe they open up target agreements. My point would be that we should, at the end of the day, induce people to try something out. Yeah, maybe we should give them some leeway to work on something that they find most interesting. And maybe we should come to a world where this performance management is not so very strict as we currently have it. Okay, yeah, maybe this is where I stop so that we have enough time for a discussion. First of all, I thank you very much for listening in to our webinar so far. Thank you for very actively participating here with questions. I would stop my talk here. And I would hand over to Rebecca and Verena so that they guide our discussion.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights. Our participants asked quite a lot of questions in between. And of course, dear participants, you are still invited to continue asking questions. So Peter will answer them right away. And I would start with a question from Andrea. Do you think that online meetings increase or decrease hidden agendas and that the decisions are already made prior to the meeting?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea, for asking this. That's absolutely what I think, because this is what I see happening. Yeah, it's much easier to do this. You pre-arrange the meeting, you talk to a few important people, you already agree on what should be decided. For my feeling, it's much easier to push this through in a digital meeting. Yeah, because people are somehow so disconnected. The one thing you notice is, although we see each other, yeah, but if it's many people, you see many people. But what you don't know who's looking at whom. That's the only big difference between online and physical meetings. So we don't know who's looking at whom. Yeah, so I think that the danger of hidden agendas is increasing. I think the danger of secret decision-making behind the scenes is increasing. I learned that these meetings are less effective, less efficient. Yeah, most people do something else. They check their email, or they play with the kids, or they shut off their microphones and videos. But I think that is a good point. Yeah.
Working in digital meetings and home office is a quite interesting topic for our participants. There are many questions in this direction. One participant asks that online meetings have set the expectations of extended working hours. What do you think, how this affects the efficiency in the long run?
Yeah, there's this beautiful logic that we have three crises in a row. It's the medical crisis, and then we have the economic crisis with recession, and then we have what people call sociological, psychological crisis. And part of that last crisis is that our kids cannot go to school or do not learn as much. But part of that is also that the boundaries between your private life and your business life, they blur more and more. Yeah, so it could be and that's, by the way, a phenomenon that's already underway. Yeah, but it could now maybe easier than before be that people are in this always on mode, which you may know. Yeah, at any time people can send you something. They can at any time send up meetings. Yeah, a good example is here in this country. I'm currently sitting in Germany. Next Thursday is a bank holiday here, but people nonetheless set up Zoom meetings during the entire Thursday. So they treat the bank holiday as if it was a regular work day. And that's the question. So yes, that may definitely happen. Yeah, the digitalization maybe speeds up this a little bit, but you individually, you as managers, you can still, you can still do this or not. Yeah, I think it's still depending on each and everyone individually, and all medical doctors or psychologists would recommend that you should make a stop somewhere, and then you should stop your activities for the day. Yeah? This always on mode will bring you to hospital. Yeah? If you play with your kids, only play with your kids and don't look at your iPhone.
There's a couple more questions with regards to home office that we will touch upon later. I would like to forward a question by Donata, which is more about digitalization that obviously pushes business model innovation, or can push business model innovation. And the question to you is, would you expect that the Corona crisis will influence this, I assume, business model innovation positively? Do you think people will be more open to change or change business models? And also, as a third part of the question, do you think that German family firms, our SME, will, with a very special corporate culture, have an advantage here?
Yeah, those are good questions. I start with the first one. Yes, digitalization certainly pushes business model innovation. That's particularly true and visible in the area of distribution, marketing, and sales. That's what my two colleagues, Ove Jensen and Martin Fassnacht, already commented on. Obviously, you're now under a lot of pressure to find new digital ways of distribution and digital marketing. So everything in that area, the business models will change there. Yeah, in other areas with business model innovation, we see there is already so many business models out there that it's not so crystal clear what Corona will do for each and every business model. Yeah, but maybe we see more subscription models, but I guess that was already underway. Yeah, you already see that there's obviously a lot more in e-commerce going on that's happening. So I would answer that question. Yes, there is an effect on business model innovation. Yes, we will see more of it. And the one direction it goes is whenever we see more digitalization. Then the interesting part is also smaller firms and family-owned businesses. Yeah, see, we have a lot of interaction at WHU with family-owned business. We have this family business research center, and that's interesting. First of all, some family-owned businesses may have strength. Yeah, we know that they have a more long-term perspective, which is good. We know that they are probably more loyal to their employees. So they are probably more reluctant to lay off people now. They have more stable business relationships. Some of my colleagues would also say that these family-owned businesses have an advantage when it comes to innovation and business model innovation, but that depends a little bit. Probably that's only true if the family members are still active in the management of the company. It's probably less true for companies where the family is somewhere else in Switzerland and where they send lawyers to the board or to the shareholders meeting. Yeah, so as long as the family is still involved in top management, that may be true. And other than that, small companies currently probably have disadvantages, yeah, because they lack funds, they lack infrastructure. Yeah, they may be more pressure to go out of business. So I guess for them, Corona makes it harder.
And Christian has a very broad or general question with regards to corporate culture. So what is the connection between corporate culture and retaining employees with a company? So how can you create and maintain a sense of identity of belonging to a company? And my assumption is, in the light of the kind of innovation culture, the culture of change you were talking about in the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah, I guess that's very relevant. I mean, the part of good corporate culture ultimately means getting the best out of our people. Yeah, so what we want is fully motivated employees. what we do see in practice, and I've seen, I guess you've all seen these surveys, that how many people are not motivated at all. Yeah, the Gallup survey shows that shockingly high numbers of people have, so to say, they just do what they need to do, but mentally they've already quit. Yeah, so a good corporate culture means getting people motivated. It means getting the best out of people. And obviously that has to do with the question with job security. Yeah, one way to demotivate people is to lay them off or to create a lot of uncertainty. And the danger is that may happen during the Corona crisis. And so maybe some companies are doing better, and maybe these family-owned businesses, they are more loyal to their employees. So what we hope to see, and I guess what we also will see, is that then these employees are also more loyal to the company. Yeah? If your employer keeps you in terms of crisis, then you may also be more productive and more loyal when times are good. And you will not so easily go somewhere else. The other part of the question is obviously that the big disadvantage right now is that companies are not hiring on a large scale. So I see it with my daughters are currently studying or trying to get jobs with other young people. It's currently certainly hard to get a job because what all companies obviously do, they're a bit hesitant when it comes to new recruiting. So the difficulty or the danger is that Corona makes us more reluctant to recruit good, yeah, well-educated, innovative, flexible people. Yeah, and then again, the effect would be detrimental.
We jump a bit between topics, apologies, but in the theory that cultural change needs psychological safety, especially in the long run. How should we realize that? How should we create that in times of crisis and when working remotely?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, with this psychological effects, I don't know. What I learned from webinars like the one from Michael Frankel, but we're currently learning more and more about the medical crisis. What exactly is Corona? How dangerous is it? What is it doing? We're beginning to learn more about the economic crisis. We have an idea on how big will the recession be. We have an idea now what industries will suffer. We have an idea on what industries will maybe benefit. We all know that there will be a big strain on fiscal budgets and the like. But the least understood part is this third wave, the sociological and the psychological effects. And I'm the wrong person to talk to. I'm a humble business person, yeah. So I'm not a psychologist, but the few things I have seen are interesting. And they say that these psychological effects are severe, yeah. They're not just something that happens on the side and that will quickly go away, but they are severe. And it's something you can probably test out already now, yeah. You see so different reactions, yeah. I'm sort of, yeah, in my age 53, some of my colleagues are absolutely panicking. Yeah, what they try to do is they try to spend isolated in a plastic bowl in a remote place until there is a vaccine, okay? And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have people who don't care at all. Yeah, they meet all kinds of people, they go to all kinds of bars whenever they can. So the feeling of threat is so notably different. Yeah, some people say they suffer a lot psychologically. Others, none at all. I told you about my brother. My brother's doing better than ever. So for him, and he's never suffered from anxiety, but he says it's good. But what I do see is this new thing is that we mistrust other people. Yeah, and these face masks, I think they contribute to that, at least for a European culture like ours. Yeah, we are used to meet, we are used to shake hands. If you're French or Italian, you would even kiss, yeah, or you would hug. And now we learn we shouldn't do all these things. Yeah, don't touch, yeah, don't shake hands. So the view to other people is maybe that person is going to kill me. Yeah, and I had an interesting discussion with my daughter the other day. She said, I'm so afraid to meet grandma because eventually I meet grandma and afterwards grandma dies and then it's my fault. I killed grandma. Can you imagine? And that's not how things should be. Yeah, you as a grandchild, you should be happy to meet grandma. And if grandma decides to meet you, it's her risk, isn't it? Yeah, and you could say, hey, grandma, you're about to die anyway in the near future, so don't worry too much. Yeah, but it's really bad if kids are not going to meet grandma because they think I'm going to kill grandma. Yeah? And if you don't meet your Chinese colleagues, we see this already. Whenever there's some Chinese person in the meeting, people say, ah, Chinese. Yeah. We even had that at university level. There was a colleague, he said, I just came back from a meeting in China, and everyone else just physically moved away from him, saying, oh my God. Yeah, that was the day when China was the country. Now you could do the same thing. I'm from Italy, or I'm from Brazil, but that is the new thing. So the psychological effect could be severe, but we don't know it yet.
Going in a different direction, in this era of online cooperation and remote working, how do you think performance management would evolve?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, I always have my difficulties with performance management anyway. I think performance management works well if we have clear goals and targets. I think performance management works well as long as we can nicely measure results and outputs. Yeah, I think performance management is already much more difficult when we cannot exactly do that. So in my area of expertise, whenever it's about innovation projects or R&D cooperation, that's already much more difficult to do. What we learned then is we need a trust, we need mutual understanding. I think in times of Corona, that's harder to build. Yeah, I think what currently works well, if you meet people online that you've already met many, many years and 1,000 times before, that's okay. Yeah, I could now easily meet with Rebecca and Verena online. That would be okay because we already know each other. We've met many times. But just imagine that you meet someone for the first time. Yeah, just imagine that there is a cooperation that you're just about to get started. Yeah, and I think then online it's much harder to build trust. Yeah, it's much harder to trust in someone that you see as a tiny little figure on your screen. And then I think performance management becomes even more difficult. So my answer to the question would be, it is already difficult as it stands, but with more and more online and digital interaction, it's getting even more difficult.
Very interesting question from Vlad. So what is your view on why companies have been so slow to adapt remote working rules? I guess this is holds very true for Germany. I know it doesn't hold true for some of the Scandinavian countries. But the question is, will we, after this Corona crisis is over, in your opinion, move back to a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job situation and everyone is in the office? Or do you think there's going to be impact on the entire thinking along working hours, remote working, and so on?
Yeah, I was asking myself exactly that same question. The hypothesis one that we said earlier would say Corona has no long-lasting effect. When that pandemic is over, we will get back to normal. So maybe we're doing a little bit of home office and online work now, but once the vaccine or a drug or so is there, we would go back to our offices and do everything as we did. But what you say, Rebecca, is also true. There's so big cultural differences. Yeah, if you compare Scandinavian countries, German countries, there's this idea that maybe in some countries the culture is real work means going to the office. Okay, but in other cultures that's much less so. Then I think it depends on the industry a lot. Yeah, there are some industries that already did a lot of online work. Yeah, I think there's some industries where this home office was already very, very common. In other industries, much less so. Yeah, and as I said before, I think that will remain. Yeah, once people learn that online office and home office is good, we will see more of that. So I don't think everyone will get back to their offices 9 to 5. We have other problems on the agenda like climate. Yeah, we have these traffic madness. Whenever you are in a big crowded city, it's painfully difficult to go to the city center of Düsseldorf and back. So maybe you learn that it's easier to stay at home. But the one thing we're missing out is contact with colleagues. Yeah, that is what we're missing out on. And the question remains, how can we sort of substitute for that? So my guess would be, we will spend maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 days in our homes, but not like with Twitter. I can't imagine myself working out of my home office all day long. That would make everyone crazy, wouldn't it? Yeah? So maybe it will be a mixture of some form.
Then a question by Tolu that refers back to how to, well, set the stage for a culture of innovation and, well, entrepreneurial thinking. The question is, how can an organization set guidelines for employees' innovative project without being too rigid or controlling? You touched upon that in your presentation, yeah. And I guess that's impossible to answer, but maybe there's some key insights that you have, or best practice examples you have in mind, because indeed there's a trade-off,
Yeah, I mean, it's a relevant point, but the words are already revealing, aren't they? The word guideline and stuff, yeah? So if you look at some companies that are truly very innovative, you would have none of all this. You would have no business case, you would have no guideline, you would have no performance measurement, you would have no controlling. So in the extreme case, you would give a few super smart people a big box of money and tell them, hey guys, you or girls, do whatever you want with that, and once you come up with something, tell me. That's the idea of what you maybe know, these Bell Labs, or these incubators where people really think the next generation of products. Then there would be none of all this. And I guess many of us would agree that's not always feasible. Yeah, sometimes we need at least a little bit of all this. We need some guidelines, but then all we know from research so far is that you should still try to keep it simple. Yeah, if you do something, then do something that's simple. If there's a guideline, it should be a simple guideline. The guideline I like best is leeway. Yeah, tell people that they have one day off where they can do what they please. Yeah, and tell them you can do what you please, do that at home if you want, or do that at the office if you like that better. Yeah, but use the resources of our company. But that is real leeway. That means you're not overburdened and packed with all kinds of jobs so that you never can think of something, but one day off is really a lot, isn't it? And whenever we discuss it with HR people, then most of them are always shocked. They say, hey, Peter, you can't do this. Yeah, one day, that's not possible. But if you look at the companies that do that, you find that most of their innovations, most of their best ideas come out of that one day. So actually it's making people not less productive, but more productive. But the part is also, we need to trust these people, don't we? Yeah, because we give them resources and time and say, do whatever you like, but we need to trust them that they do something in the interest of the company. And if the corporate culture is good and positive, then that does work.
What do you say, how can companies manage the internal tensions that may arise between the roles that must be physically present and those who can stay in home office?
Yeah, that's also clear. I mean, it is absolutely clear that some jobs cannot be done out of home office. So there may already be some privilege, some status thing, yeah, that some better jobs can do home office and the others not. Yeah, the same is true, by the way, what you see in many of the corona effects with educating kids in school. That's probably easier if you're in a rich country with rich kids and everyone have laptops and stuff. It's much more difficult to do that in a poor country. And so there's some jobs that simply cannot be done online. Yeah, that's pretty clear. So they will always have to be on site. But what you're saying, Verena, is true. I mean, they may envy those people who can stay at home, clearly. Yeah. So in the best of all worlds, that's a temporary phenomenon. Right? You can explain them and you can say, okay, that's just due to corona. But Vlad, I guess, said earlier, in the long run, we're all going back to office and everyone will be there. And the next phenomenon will be that we really take a hard look and think twice. Maybe even other people can do more from home. Maybe there's not so many people who actually have to stay at the office. Yeah, and there's some surprising findings. If you look like what we do here, universities right now, you would literally find no one. Yeah, I'm in a big building, but I guess it would be really, really hard for me to find someone. So more or less everyone does home office here. Yeah? But in a big factory, it's clear that that's not possible.
As time is running up quickly, I would like to ask one last question. How basically can we make it better? How can we help the culture of our company regarding communication, regarding team building activities in the future, maybe? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I think it can be done. I think it's a leadership role. That's why I was stressing this during my little talk. It is actually the responsibility of you people listening here. It's a leadership thing. We need this, what we call walk the talk. So when you say something, then do it yourself. Yeah, these leaders must be credible. So if you say, I trust you, I encourage you to take risk, then let them take risk. Yeah, and if something goes wrong, then don't punish them badly. Yeah, and the same is true for leeway. If you say leeway, I give you a day off, do whatever you please, then don't sneak around and see what they do. Yeah, then trust them and say, okay, so if you want to do this, do this. Yeah, if you say free flow of information, I guess that's a really relevant part. But we all know how difficult that is in a large organization. Yeah, in a super big company with 30,000 people, how can you make sure that there's really honest free flow of information? But it's a leadership job. And obviously it starts at the top. If you want everyone in the organization to do that, then these highest executives should be role models. So the sad thing I'm always experiencing is that there's so much hidden agenda setting, so much trash talk, so much politics at the very top level of the organization that no one else believes it. Yeah, if we really want to speed things up, then we should clearly and incredibly communicate that speed does matter. Yeah. Then we would say, okay, then set your own deadlines, encourage people to do it. But then we all agree that if we speed things up, maybe more mistakes are going to happen. And then we would say, that's okay.
Thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your insights. Thank you, dear participants, for staying tuned in. And hopefully we see each other next week, Monday, again. Peter, maybe you would like to say some last words here.
Yeah, I thank you all. It was very good that you are here. So that is pretty good. Feel free whenever you have any further questions to contact me. Feel free to send me an email or whatever so that we just stay in touch. I know it's Corona, but the good thing about these webinars that Rebecca and Verena are organizing here is that we stay in touch. So stay in touch with academic institutions like WHU, stay in touch amongst yourself, even if it's digital. And then one more thing, there will be the day when all this is over, okay? And then we will celebrate this very hard, okay? We will hug, we will kiss, we will drink, we will touch all kinds of virus detected surfaces and stuff. That will be a good day. Okay, thank you very much.